welcome to The Perspective. I'm Lorie Hartshorn, and I've been having a great time hanging out at The Perspective all this week. For Mike Sherbino, we're having great conversations. We're learning a lot and ultimately gaining perspective on some very important things in our life. And I don't know about, you, but today's topic is really so relevant to me. I'm not only just a mom, but I'm now a grandma. And can I just say that I have grandchildren that have access to these cell phones, these things that I had no memory of. I have actually a time in my life where I have no digital memory. And that's actually a gift, believe it or not, because the cell phone and internet did not come into my world till later in my life. But the truth is, my grandkids are seeing it, the day they're born pretty well. They're being exposed to so many things that our generation wasn't. And so we need to learn, don't we? We need to be equipped. It can be a scary world out there, and we want to help our kids. And we have the perfect person here today to help us navigate some of the challenges of protecting our children online. Julia Beazley is the EFC's Director of Public Policy. She's been with EFC since 1999, working mainly on issues of domestic and global poverty, homelessness, prostitution, pornography, and human trafficking. Wow. So Julia has insight into so many topics today. Well, she moved from her previous position as policy analyst to director of public policy in January 2016. And Julie is joining us today to talk about this very important topic of protecting kids online. Well, welcome to The Perspective, Julia. It's a delight to have you here.
Hi, Lorie. It's great to be here.
Have you always had digital memory in your lifetime? Can you remember a time without the internet or cell phones?
Believe it or not, I can. I remember when the internet was a dial-up, slow process in university. Yep, things have changed.
Yes, they certainly have changed, and so quickly, right? And with this change, there's become an increasing concern about protecting our kids online from explicit material like pornography and gambling sites. So, we need your help today, Julia. Please give us, first of all, a picture or statistics on the ages of kids gaining access to smartphones.
Yeah, well, they're a bit shocking, really. I think we all know that kids are spending more and more time online at younger and younger ages. But a Globe and Mail article this spring said that more than 1 in 3 kids aged 2 to 6 use a smartphone.
No.
Yeah, half of kids between 7 and 11 actually have their own. But even if our kids don't have their own smartphone, they have friends, classmates, or older siblings who do. They have the world at their fingertips and in their pockets. And this carries potential for all kinds of good things, but also significant potential for harm.
Yeah.
And one of the harms we've been sounding the alarm on for a number of years is kids accessing pornography online. So we know that I think more than half of 11 to 13-year-olds have seen porn online, but we've heard of kids much, much younger. And unfortunately, for all of us as parents, as grandparents, as people who care about the children in our lives, the question isn't if kids will see it, it's when. Wow. Because they can so easily access these porn sites that are free, that don't have any meaningful age assurance in place, whether they're looking for it or not. So really simple search terms, even very innocent search terms, can bring up these websites. So we have to do something about this.
Yes. And you know what? You have a greater appreciation. I raised my kids and they didn't have as much exposure on it really until closer in their teen years. But I'm watching my little grandkids and going, this is frightening. And tell us, what are some of the effects on kids that are a result of exposure to things like pornography? How does it affect them?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we often hear in these spaces that pornography has become the primary sex educator of kids today, and that is deeply, deeply worrisome. There is a growing body of research that tells us that viewing pornography has significant harmful effects on the developing brain, on the ability to form healthy relationships, on the ways we think about and relate to the opposite sex. And so much of what kids see today on these free sites is violent and aggressive. A 2021 study found that 1 in 8 of the titles shown to first-time viewers on the landing pages of these mainstream sites portrayed sexually violent acts. So what they're seeing is telling them dangerous and damaging lies about sexuality. Porn teaches that sex isn't about intimacy, love, or respect, that it's casual, recreational, meaningless, that it's adversarial or aggressive, that violence is normal and desirable. We know that viewing pornography shapes kids' and teens' attitudes about sex, their expectations of themselves and their partners, their understanding of what's normal, and all of this has an impact on their behavior with real-world consequences for the kids themselves, for how they treat and relate to each other now and in future relationships, and for society, because what they're seeing normalizes some pretty awful things. So this is not what we want for our kids. It's certainly not God's design for them. So we have to do all we can to protect them from being exposed to and kind of pulled down into that seemingly bottomless pit of pornography online.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It can be scary and feel quite overwhelming, but you say that there's some good news regarding this, that age assurance technologies exist, and
Yeah.
that if they were to be put in place, they would protect children and youth. So, first of all, explain what age assurance is and how does it work?
Sure. So this is one of the important tools we have available. These technologies will verify that a user is over a certain age before they can access certain content or create an account. We don't have that right now, right? What we have might be, enter your age or your birthday, click here if you're over 18. Well, that's not meaningful. Anybody can do that. So unless kids have filters they have to get around that have been put in place at home or on their devices, there's no barrier. So broadly speaking, age assurance technologies will either verify or estimate a person's age with some degree of reliability. So this can be done in a few different ways. So for example, a user can be asked to show government ID or a credit card to an approved independent third party that will use that information to confirm they're over a certain age and then delete the information. Or their age can be estimated using biometrics like facial features. So these technologies is important. These technologies verify the user's age, not their identity. It's not facial recognition, it's called facial age estimation. And these technologies tend to be pretty accurate to within a couple of years.
That's really fascinating because I think, to your point, sometimes people think, oh, it's going to get all my information on myself, my identity, capture it all. So then we're hesitant. But that actually makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? That age
Yeah.
recognition, setting up that barrier. In the real world, I mean, age restrictions, you think about it, they exist for entering certain establishments, right? They require you to show ID when purchasing specific products. So why is this not been the case online?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah,
I think there are a few reasons for that. But a big one is that pornography is a commercial enterprise.
right.
These sites make billions and billions of dollars a year, and they make most of their money from advertising and kind of other connections that happen on their sites. So the more eyes on their content, the more money they make, which means there's no financial incentive to restrict the number of users, whoever they may be. And meaningful age restrictions also take some degree of intention and effort to put in place. Wide open access is an easy, though clearly problematic, default option. There are also a lot of what I might call red herrings in this discussion that seem to come up whenever and wherever age assurance is proposed. You alluded to one of them. There are usually concerns raised about data collection, which is a bit rich given the inordinate amount of data these sites already collect from their users. But
Yeah, exactly.
there are those who express concern about online privacy. If I had to show my government issued ID, would that information be secure? What if there was a hack? My information got out. So this and the data question are really why the standard today is that it be an independent third party that verifies, certifies the user, and then deletes the information, not the porn site itself. So Canada's Privacy Commissioner believes it is possible to design and use age assurance in a way that protects privacy, and we agree. These platforms aren't doing it on their own, so we need legislation to require them to do it.
And there's some countries that actually already have these restrictions in place. And when we come back, we're going to learn more from Julia, and we're going to learn about age restrictions in other places. Stay tuned. Well, welcome back. We're here with Julia Beazley from EFC, and we're talking about the important question of protecting our kids online. Now, Julia, you said that there is age restriction put in place in other countries for online users. So where are those countries? Maybe we all want to move there. What does it actually look like in other countries?
Yeah, so we've got some great examples from other countries, not only of how this can work, but more importantly, that it does work. And we need to be learning from those jurisdictions that have managed to do this in ways that work and that protect privacy. So after a few starts and stops, the UK is rolling out their Online Safety Act. So this will require providers, including pornography platforms, to use age verification or estimation or both to prevent kids from any age from encountering content that's harmful online. Germany has had guidelines for online age assurance in place for many years. Australia is moving ahead with a pilot program for age assurance, and there are several US states that have passed age assurance laws. So something that's interesting is in countries like Germany or the UK, the laws don't mandate which method companies have to use. They just say you have to use one of these many providers and technologies that have been approved by the regulatory body as effective and privacy preserving. Right. I think France actually passed a law this spring introducing an age verification system to ensure that websites and I think video sharing platforms that broadcast pornographic content aren't accessible to minors. So there are lots of countries that are really starting to recognize these harms and taking action, and we would love to see Canada do the same.
Well, we certainly have enough studies, enough stats, enough statistics to see the damage that has happened in our children and youth that leads to a very dysfunctional adult life. And we want to help and heal people. Where does Canada stand then on the status of age assurance technologies?
Yeah, so as I said, we don't currently mandate them, at least not for pornography sites. The Privacy Commissioner has just done a bit of a consultation on the topic, and as I said, he believes that it is possible to do this in a way that's effective and privacy preserving. So we're hoping that is a good sign. And you mentioned gambling sites. So these sites are regulated province by province, but some, if not all, actually require an account with a credit card registered in order to gamble. I'm sure there's financial reasons for that, but we do have some precedent for this kind of verification. But technology moves so fast, and we're already behind when it comes to responding to online harms, including access to porn sites. But this isn't a new issue, right? This has been around as long as we've had Wi-Fi and smartphones. And we have, as you said, decades of research on the harms. So it's past time that we get this done. So there is a bill that's currently moving through the House of Commons that would make it a criminal offense to make sexually explicit material available for a commercial purpose to those under 18. It's called Bill S210. And it is a critical step toward mandated age assurance. So we've supported this bill. We will continue to call for it to be passed. But for this to happen, we all need to speak up, tell our MPs we're concerned and we think this needs to pass. So we've got information about that on our website. The other piece that's important is we often talk about protecting kids in front of and behind the screens. So we need to make sure that the images that are on these platforms aren't of minors. We need legislation that requires these sites to verify age and consent before the images or videos are uploaded in the first place, because once they're up there, it is incredibly difficult to get them back, and the damage is lifelong and devastating. So there's another bill that's before Parliament called Bill C-270, or the Stopping Internet Sexual Exploitation Act, and it would require this of pornography platforms. So we support this bill. I would invite all of you to support it as well. As I said, you can find more information about both of these on our website, and some, information, sample communications, ways to contact your MP about them.
Well, that's super helpful, because my next question was going to be, what can we do? Parents, grandparents, caregivers, what can we do to help protect children in our care? And I appreciate the information for sure about these bills that are being passed, because that actually gives us hope that, the people in power are becoming aware, are making, motions towards this. And we can certainly get behind those bills, and we can pray, right, as people. Is there practical things that even now, as a grandmother, help me out here? What can I do to protect my own children in my life, as others watching would want the same?
Yeah, I love this question. And one of the things I always say is that we are our kids' or grandkids' first line of defense. So it is so important we do our best to establish open, honest dialogue with them, to talk to them about what's out there in an age-appropriate way, and what to do when they encounter some of this content, or when their friends try to show it to them. Make sure they know that seeing something bad doesn't make them bad, right? The message should be, if you see something, come talk to me. We want them to come to us with their questions, their curiosities, and also to know that we're both safe to come to if something happens, and we're a safe place to land if they do make a mistake. And kids will make mistakes, right? We all did. We need to make sure that we give them a lifeline if that happens. The other thing I might suggest, which won't make me popular with any kids who might be watching, is hold off on the smartphone as long as you can. The longer you can delay, the better. If it's for communication purposes, there are non-smart or less smartphones out there that you can get. When they do get one, it's important to be engaged and aware. Familiarize yourself with the apps and games they're using, learn about the privacy and location settings, and lock things down as much as possible, so that ideally your kids are only interacting with other kids they know. There's amazing filtering softwares and blocking, tools that you can use to try and keep them from accessing some of this content. But in general, it's just really important to know what they're doing. What are they doing on their phone, iPad, laptop, especially at younger ages? Doesn't mean we're right in there in everything they're doing, but it's important that we have an understanding of who they're interacting with, how are they spending their time. And the other thing is that I think is important is to set some limits. Do they need data, right? Or can they just make do with Wi-Fi, and then you make use of the technologies that help filter and block kinds of content? Make a rule that they're not on their devices after a certain time, and not in their bedrooms alone at night. You said this in the beginning. When I was in school, we passed notes, right?
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes they weren't very nice, right? But they didn't follow me home. They weren't being tossed in my bedroom window at me at night when I was trying to study or sleep. Kids need spaces and times where they get a break from this nonstop access. And we do too. So maybe consider as a family building in these offline times for everyone. But even, with our best efforts, it's too big for parents alone to manage, right. Which is why, we say we need the government to take action as well. Yeah. Anti-porn activist Gail Dines says asking parents to keep their kids from seeing porn online is like asking them to keep their kids from breathing polluted air. Or Chris McKenna from Protect Young Eyes, which is actually a fantastic resource for parents, says there are sharks in the pool and the pool is in their pockets. So this is a society-wide problem. We want all kids protected, not just those whose parents are really involved and aware of what's going on. So we need a range of tools and solutions to address this.
Well, that is super helpful. I can't thank you enough. And I know those watching really appreciate your insight. Thank you for your good work. How can people find the EFC?
Yeah, so we've made this a bit of a focus for this back to school month. So you can find more information at www.theefc.ca/protectkids. And that'll take you to a bunch of different resources we have on pornography generally and how to protect kids. We have a new brochure. And watch our communications for an upcoming webinar series we're doing in collaboration with Defend Dignity in October and November. So those will address different areas of online harms and how we can respond. We don't have a registration page just yet, but
Okay.
but we will soon. So keep an eye on our communications for that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well done. Great work. We really appreciate your work and we appreciate the EFC. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for hosting this important conversation.
We'll be right back.
Will you donate 2 hours of your time? Crossroads Prayer Center is seeking people with a heart willing to join in the amazing work God is doing through prayer. Providing over 1,300 prayer interactions daily, Crossroads Prayer Partners speak biblical truth and words of life over people's need. Join in God's transforming work through prayer and enrich your faith. Learn more at crossroads.ca/prayervolunteer.
We all want to protect our kids, right? It's natural for parents and grandparents to want to protect our children from injury, from accidents, from exposure to evil and people that will hurt them. And this is a good quality and a desire of every parent. But the truth is, you can't always protect your kids from everything. You do your best, and so much, though, is out of our control. So what do you do with your fears and your desire to protect your children? Well, you have to turn your kids over to the protection of God. Before you think that's a guarantee that nothing bad will happen to them, let's look more closely at what God's protection actually involves. A friend posted a picture the other day of her smashed up car, and thankfully it was just the front bumper. And her post read, "Thankful for God's protection." In other words, it could have been worse had God not protected me. And I'm glad it wasn't worse too, but the reality is my friend still got in a car accident. She still had a smashed up bumper. So it raises the question, what does God's protection look like if we still find ourselves with smashed up bumpers? Well, Psalm 91 is often used as sort of this ultimate scripture promising God's protection. And the Psalm seems to say, if you trust God, nothing bad will happen to you and your life will go smoothly, even to the point that you won't stub your toe. And the opposite seems to be implied. If things aren't going well, you must not be trusting God. Now, that's a troubling conclusion, isn't it? It almost sounds like karma. If I'm suffering, it must be my fault. Another fact is that, well, Satan quoted Psalm 91 to Jesus when he tempted him in the wilderness. And he tells Jesus to throw himself off the cliff, and surely based on Psalm 91, God will protect him. Well, here's a good rule of thumb when reading the Bible. If you come to the same conclusion Satan does, you're probably not reading it right. So what does Psalm 91 actually tell us about God's protection? Well, let's read verses 15 to 17. It says, "The Lord says, I will rescue those who love me. I will protect those who trust in my name. When they call on me, I will answer. I will be with them in trouble. I will rescue and honor them. I will reward them with a long life and give them my salvation." Now, first, the psalmist isn't saying that you won't have trouble. He says that when you have trouble, God will be with you. And this includes your children and grandchildren. We can't always be there with our kids. When our son was making poor choices in his life, he shared that even when he didn't want anything to do with God, when he was afraid and alone, God was with him. He felt God's presence and protection, even in dangerous situations. This brought us great comfort. When you can't be with your kids, God is. Secondly, going through trouble with God brings us closer to him. And you notice that his promise of protection is to those who love him and trust him and call on him. Our love and trust in him grows as we call on God for protection. As parents, we were experiencing a lot of pain and shame because we couldn't protect our kids. But God was using that pain in our own lives to draw us ultimately to him. And it made us more dependent on him. We have to choose to turn to God in our pain. He is there for us when we do. And finally, when we experience the ultimate fulfillment of Psalm 91, and this is found in the resurrection of Jesus, because this is where we find our salvation and the reward for a long life. This speaks of eternal life with God, where every phrase of this psalm will be literally true. No sickness, no more death, no more harm. All of this we will see in eternity. So this provides us with great comfort in this life. Even when we smash our front bumper or our children suffer harm, we can be assured that God is there, providing his presence and drawing us closer to him. He's with our kids. He is with our grandkids. He's drawing them to himself. We have no idea how often he is protecting our children in this life, but we can be assured that we will be free from all harm one day. So keep your eyes on him. Ask him to guide and protect your loved ones, and know he's got them. God truly is our protector. I hope today's conversation has also encouraged you as we've talked about ministries like the EFC, the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, who is fighting at the highest levels of court in our country for protection for our children. Pray for them. Go to their site and get the resources that you need. But maybe you need prayer today. There's a loved one, maybe even a child that has experienced harm, and you want prayer for them or for yourself. Call us at 1-855-910-6297. We're here for you to answer your call. Or write to us at prayer@theperspective.tv. We have a free resource, The Perspective Devotional. It's a daily devotional, a beautifully written devotional, and something for every day for the month that you can turn to gain perspective, to gain strength and patience and endurance, and to know that God is with you. So why don't you call us or write to us, prayer@theperspective.tv. We're happy to send you this free resource to encourage you today. And I want to thank you for watching. Your support of this ministry is what enables it to happen and to take place. So please send your gift of support to us. We'd so appreciate it. It's been great to be with you all this week. I'll send it over to Mike for next week, and I will see you later. Thanks for your time.